All right, so wide receivers.
Very exciting.
Wide receivers. Probably definitely
the most. Yeah, definitely the most players.
The most length. Definitely the most length out of all
not the girth of the running backs, but definitely the length.
Right, but the length. So if you're more of a length, a bigger fan of length, you're gonna like wide receivers.
You're gonna love wide receivers.
There might be quite the list out there on your waiver wires. So the top 5 that we've identified that might be sitting there on your waiver wires. Number 1, wide receiver John Brown, Buffalo Bills. We love this guy. We identified him as a sleeper. We identified him as a guy in our pre-regular season waiver pickup segment where we said, hey, look, maybe if you messed up your draft, this is a guy you might want to see, if he's out there. Had a great week 1. So talk to our viewers a little bit about John Brown and why we feel if he's out there on waivers, he's certainly worth getting on your roster.
Yeah, John Brown, it comes down to health. He's been very productive wherever he's been, whether it's Arizona, whether it's Baltimore. He's finally in a place with no competition on a team that's going to have to throw with a big arm quarterback. It's like all the stars are aligned for him right now. Week 1, he showed you that. We talked to you about it way before then. So this isn't a hindsight thing with John Brown. We really like him. This week he gets the Giants. He should put up big numbers again. If he stays healthy, this could easily be your dream flex. Fine at even wide receiver 2. So John Brown is definitely, this is assuming that Sammy Watkins isn't out there or Gallup.
Right.
If Gallup or Sammy Watkins are on your free agent, stop watching, press pause, run to your free agent and pick them up. Assuming they're not.
Or get your waiver claim in.
Yeah, or get your claim in or whatever, right? And those 2 guys are league changers at this point. In that order, Watkins, Gallup. John Brown, to us, is the guy that's available in the most leagues, 65% ESPN, 39% of CBS. So he's available in quite a few leagues. Go get him. Josh Allen, he's going to love throwing to this guy. He's going to make him look really good. And they're going to have to throw. The Bills aren't a team that's going to ground and pound, so they'll be throwing a decent amount.
Well, I mean, look, here's the thing about John Brown, too. You nailed it. Big arm quarterback. That's who he excels with. That's why Baltimore brought him in last year. Now, look, last year he's on Baltimore. Baltimore, run first, defensive team, and yet John Brown, I think, was at one point like the number 7.
He was doing well at the beginning.
Fantasy wide receiver because he excels with a big arm quarterback. That's a big part of his game. But he can, he is a route runner as well. He's not a one-trick pony. So now, you look, like you said, the stars align. He's got a big arm in Josh Allen. He's on a team that, their defense is okay, but that doesn't really affect his value that much because of the fact that he is the clear number 1. Zay Jones and Robert Forrest, there's really nobody else there.
He's the man.
So it's not going to take, Buffalo's going to have to, have 40 points on the board for John Brown to have had the big week. If they only have 10, 13 points, the 1 touchdown might be because it was John Brown. So absolutely a guy that's...
He's like a D-Jax on a team without 16 other people. He doesn't have Ertz, he doesn't have Jeffrey, he doesn't have all those people to compete with. So it's obviously not as good of an offense, but he's the best guy by a mile.
Right.
So
and
you gotta like that.
He was peppered with targets. Yep. He clearly looks like he's Josh Allen's number 1. So absolutely. All right. We mentioned that again. Watkins, Gallup, if they're out there, prioritize those guys. Next guy that we identified is wide receiver Jamison Crowder, New York Jets. Had a few targets in week 1. 17 targets.
Get the fuck out of here. No, I cannot. It's serious.
If you haven't heard.
14 of them?
Yeah,
14 catches?
14
catches. Targets?
Right. Not for a lot of yards. I mean...
That's like Nuck. Nuck does that, right?
Oh, my goodness. I don't have time for this. Yeah. No, listen, obviously would have liked to have seen, more yardage out of 14 catches. Yeah. But, hey, look, he didn't break one. But just imagine if he had and what his week could have been. So, Jamison Crowder, last year with Washington, he was a guy that, people were identifying as a potential sleeper for like 100 receptions.
Right.
And then it didn't happen. That offense just fell apart and it just, now he's on what I would say is a more stable offense. And we'll just quickly touch on the fact that what news just broke before we started recording was that the Jets just acquired Demaryius Thomas. Right. not that, I don't think that's going to take anything away from Crowder. I think it just adds a little more credibility to who else is out there that defenses have to focus on. So is this the year? I mean, is this the year that Crowder becomes that PPR, little PPR darling?
I think it's a probable thing because the best part about his situation is Adam Gase. Adam Gase loves throwing short passes. If you remember, Jarvis Landry would always have 10 to 15 targets and no yards. Like, he would never have a big yards per catch.
Right.
But he would have 10 catches for 80 yards, 90 yards, and throw in a touchdown here and there. And then when they threw in the touchdown, it was a huge week.
Right.
But even this past week, if he has 14 catches for 100 yards, if it's a PPR league, it's 24 points without a touchdown.
Without a touchdown.
So, yeah, Crowder and PPR, even half point. Standard league, nope. He's not a standard league guy, but he's half point or a point PPR. Go get him. He's definitely going to be. This is not a fluke. Whether or not he gets 14 to 17, you'll be happy with 8 out of 12 targets.
Absolutely.
So go get him. Gase is going to utilize him, and Darnold's a much better quarterback than anything he had in Washington. So.
And, they play the Browns this week, Monday Night Football.
Yeah, it should be a nice game for him.
Yeah, Delaney had a nice game against the Browns. The secondary doesn't. I mean, we'll see what happened with the Browns defense,
right.
but absolutely. All right, number 3. We're going back to another Brown, and that is rookie wide receiver Marquise Brown of the Baltimore Ravens. We talked about him in our kind of real or mirage segment. Just based off the fact that everything that came from that Baltimore offense, Lamar Jackson and Marquise Brown and everybody else, was against a college team, maybe a college team that's not even in the top 25, high school team. So we do have to wait and see. But the one thing that struck me that I didn't know is after Marquise Brown's game, I said, I want to just kind of look into him a little bit. And we talked about this. Marquise Brown was the first wide receiver taken in the NFL draft.
In the 2019 draft, yeah.
So we obviously, N'Keal Harry, DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Deebo Samuel.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of these names were
first round.
Yeah. First guy taken, Marquise Brown. To a team that was in desperate need of wide receiver help.
Right.
So, Harbaugh, I mean, give the guy credit. I think that Baltimore just did a great job of keeping things under the radar. He did come out and make this kind of obscure comment that, people are going to be surprised when they see what our offense is. That, people are thinking we're going to be this boring, just run offense.
Yeah. So,
again, it was against the Dolphins, so we have to factor that in. But what are your thoughts on Marquise Brown? Is he worth, we know he's worth it, but
I don't know what to expect from Baltimore going forward because we all have reacted to the first week because we're so excited about the first week and all these things happen and guys you thought were going to be great like Curtis Samuel do nothing and then other guys like this guy blow up and Lamar Jackson, who we've been making fun of saying he can't throw the football to save his life, was throwing passes down the field right in these guys' hands. People are like, Miami stinks. It's like, yeah, but it's still the NFL, and you still got to make the throw.
Right.
It doesn't matter if the team's not that good. So he was making all the throws. Yes, there was very little pressure on him, stuff like that, clean pockets. So, the guy didn't run at all. I think he ran for 6 yards, Lamar Jackson. So it was a fluke game, a weird game. But this week will tell us a lot more. They're going up against Arizona. Listen, another so-so team, not a good defense. But if he's able to make the throws and this guy emerges with another big game, then it's definitely time to say that he's legit. But for right now, he's a stash. He's worth a stash.
Absolutely. The same way, DK Metcalf, some of these guys that you took to stash just to see.
Right.
Marquise Brown now belongs, maybe on top of that list.
Came out of the game with the most out of all of them. So
absolutely. Yeah. And listen, for this week, if you're in a jam, Arizona, Stafford and the Lions didn't seem to have any problem.
Yeah, almost 400 yards passing. So
throwing on him. So
I would definitely go get him.
He's definitely a guy you want to grab, see what's going to happen for the rest of the year. But if you are in a jam at wide receiver or flex,
he won't be there next week. Like none of these guys are going to be there next week. The top five in each position.
Now's your chance.
So if you want him, get him now.
He said, if you ain't first, you're last. Oh hell, Ricky, I was high when I said that.
If he has a dud this week, maybe give him one more week. Then you can get rid of him. But if he has another follow-up game, you got yourself once again a nice flex with upside.
Absolutely. All right, number 4 on the list, wide receiver John Ross, Cincinnati Bengals. Another guy that we highlighted and talked about in the Real or Mirage. Of course, AJ Green is out right now. All of the attention went to Tyler Boyd. We saw him getting drafted somewhere in the middle rounds. Ross was an afterthought. He was a kid that when he came out of the draft had a lot of hype based off his speed, and he's a burner. He can take the top off of defense. It just never seemed to work out for him. And week 1 has a huge game. So are you a believer? And give us your thoughts on John Ross. Is he similar to Brown, a guy that you definitely want to make sure you grab now just in case this is real?
Yeah, I mean, like AJ Green's in a walking boot still. There's no timetable. We don't know when he's going to be back. Let's just say a month from now, best case scenario. Tyler Boyd, we mentioned, he's not a number 1. He doesn't do well without AJ Green. This kid is now flourishing as the 2, right? The 1 is taking all the coverage, Boyd, and now he is able to sprint past and get behind the defense. John Ross was like a first rounder. I mean, Andy Dalton, we talked about him earlier, that he is going to be throwing the ball a lot. There's going to be a lot of game scripts where they're going to come from behind. So I love it. He's a big play guy. He's like a poor man's John Brown, except he's not the number 1. He's the number 2. Less coverage, but I like him. I don't know what he'll be when AJ Green comes back, assuming he comes back as himself. Right. But for now, for the next month or so, you could do worse.
All right. And number 5 on our list, wide receiver McCole Hardman. Did I say McCole?
McCole.
McCole. I don't know why I threw the R in there. McCole Hardman. I own the guy. We literally just talked about him. McCole Hardman. Of course, he's on this list due to the fact, well, a couple of things. One, obviously, he's on the Kansas City Chiefs, but the main reason is Tyreek Hill, of course, suffered the injury, could be out a couple weeks. They drafted Hardman. At the time they drafted Hardman, it was when it looked like Hill was going to be suspended, so they specifically selected him because of his similarities to Tyreek Hill's game. Tyreek Hill's injured, but again, I think the concern why we don't have him number 1 is due to the fact that there are other options, for Mahomes. So there's no guarantee that he just all of a sudden becomes Tyreek Hill just because he's similar in the game. He's a rookie, and Mahomes doesn't have to, force a ball to him when he's got the other options. But talk to us about Hardman and, how you see that playing out.
Well, really the thing about Hardman is he's got to compete with Demarcus Robinson technically for that spot to replace Tyreek Hill on the field. Obviously, Watkins is now the number 1 for sure receiver, and Kelsey obviously number 1 target. He and Watkins will split that 1A, 1B. If he beats out Demarcus Robinson, which talent-wise he should, and Tyreek Hill's out for more than, you're saying, a couple weeks, it could be the IR. They don't know. It's a serious injury.
Still out there, right?
It's like a very dangerous injury. The bone, there's a lot of organs and stuff. So if he's out, which I've heard somebody say, you're not going to see him for at least a month. I think Jeff Mans today said he's out for at least a month. Don't even think you're going to see him on the field. If he's out for a while with the arm that Mahomes possesses, which go to YouTube and type in Mahomes 100-yard throw. He literally casually throws the ball 100 yards from one end zone to the other. The guy's a freak of nature. He could throw it on the run. And with a kid with this kind of speed, all it takes is one pass, 80-yard touchdown, and that's 15 points in PPR. It's like that quick.
Yep.
So that's who you're talking about. So go grab the guy. If you have Hill, he's a must-add. Even if you don't. You want a piece of that offense, you want a piece with upside. And then just see what happens with Hill. We're not going to know anything about Hill probably for a week or 2.
Right.
So
I would almost say, if you are, if you're solid at wide receiver, you have, let's say you're looking at your team wide receiver wise, and you're saying that a John Brown, Jamison Crowder, a John Ross, any one of these guys would be like your 4th or your 5th. Then hey, it might even make more sense to just go Hardman, just due to the fact that you don't need those other guys to come in and play a role on your team right now, you should be fine. But, as far as the most upside, absolutely just being in that offense. Nobody else on our list is in that kind of offense,
right,
or has that makeup and role, so to say, where the 80-yard, touchdown, and then that you could have a game where he has two of those, so to say. Maybe not two 80-yarders, but we saw the type of games that Tyreek Hill were putting up. I don't see John Brown putting up Tyreek Hill type games. Jamison Crowder, John Ross, once in a while, but.
Because how many quarterbacks in the NFL are locked for 3 touchdowns every week?
Right.
I mean, that's what Mahomes is. He's 3, 4, 5 every week. Josh Allen will have a couple of games where he does that,
right?
But he's not going to do that every week.
Right.
Only Brady maybe right now, and Goff, if they wanted to throw a little bit more, could possibly do 2 or 3 every single week.
And Buffalo, respectable defense. Baltimore, respectable defense.
Right.
Jets, but you look at the Chiefs. I mean, everybody's going to be able to score against them. So even when, absolutely, of course. So really, I think it all depends on what your needs are. If you need a guy a little more solid, a little more stable and definite, and possibly a guy that's going into your lineup this week, then we would certainly say Brown and Crowder or some of those more safer guys.
You like to gamble, you want to take a high upside, lottery ticket with a lower floor, you go for this guy.
Right. You
want the safer guys, maybe you want to go John Brown or Crowder. If you want to take a shot, you got the Marquise Browns, the Rosses, and the Hardmans.
Yep.
Those are the home run lottery tickets.
All right. So somebody who's not a home run threat every time he touches the ball, but he has proven to be valuable in PPR in the past. Danny Amendola, Detroit Lions. What do you think?
He had a big game out of the slot. Golden Tate's not there anymore. Riddick isn't there. You mentioned that during the last podcast. So Amendola, he could be a poor man's Jamison Crowder, is kind of how I look at him. He is always injured in his career. He's always been banged up. He's an older guy. He's been around for a long time. But he was with Brady, and he's got great hands. He's basically like a mini Edelman, except older. Well, they're both old, but he's available in 80-90% of leagues. You could do worse if you're in a PPR league. Once again, Amendola and Crowder, PPR only.
Absolutely.
Or half point maybe, but not standard. So just remember your scoring system. But Danny Amendola, he can get you some, probably 6 to 8 targets a week.
Yeah, he was. He was lost in that Dolphins offense, and I think you hit on a great point. Stafford, certainly seemed to very much enjoy having guys like Tate and Theo Riddick being able to have something in that short passing game. So, and real quickly, what we talked about is Galladay and Jones on the outsides, and now Hawkinson
in the middle, right?
So
the slot is wide open for a lot of targets.
Absolutely. You're going to see a lot of soft coverage. Right. Cole Beasley, Buffalo Bills. Kind of most the poor man's Amendola.
He's a poor man's Amendola. Right?
We're going to listen until we're broke.
May I help you, sir?
How much for an order of ribs?
$2.50.
$2.50? Let me get one.
Right on. One order ribs.
No. One rib.
One rib.
I sure am hungry. You got any soda?
$1.
Hey, check this out. Why don't you let me get a sip for 15 cents?
My cups cost more than 15 cents.
All right, fuck the cup. Pour one in my hand for a dime.
But
Buffalo. I mean, listen, John Brown's the big play guy, but when you need to throw a short pass, Beasley is a reliable guy. He was always decent at that role in Dallas, and there's not a lot of weapons in Buffalo, so I don't mind Cole Beasley. Right there with the Amendola, right, slightly behind him maybe.
A guy that maybe does fit more into the. Home run threat, we'll have to see. This may have just been a complete fluke, but rookie wide receiver Terry McLaurin, Washington Redskins, had a very nice week 1. Mm-hmm. He's a 12th wide receiver taken in the draft, and there's nothing else there.
Yeah, there's really
literally nothing. Yeah. So, hey, he's possibly the number 1 wide receiver
he's possibly the number 1, and the thing I like about him is he went to school at Haskins.
Yeah.
So, Haskins is going to eventually take over, and they have a chemistry already. So that could be a guy you're thinking later in the year, Haskins takes over at some point.
Right.
Regardless of how good Keenum does, once they start falling behind and they're out of the playoff, they got to put this kid in.
Absolutely.
So then he's going to he's going to go to his boy. They went to school together. I mean, come on. I mean,
It's an interesting take.
What
Interesting take.
What better chemistry do you have than that?
No, I mean, and we've seen that work before. We've seen, where the quarterback and wide receiver, quarterback and tight end, because they went to school together. Yeah, that chemistry can certainly pay off. All right, so this one I think is interesting. So we're talking about Hardman, we're talking about his upside, and you mentioned that kind of what's coming out of KC is that Demarcus Robinson may have a role there as well. Remember, he's been with the team for a little bit,
right.
and so with Hardman being a rookie, I guess look, if somebody beats you to Hardman, you're the last guy on the waiver wire, and some of these guys aren't there. Certainly, Demarcus Robinson, take a shot. He's in that same KC offense, and there is no guarantee that Hardman, wins out, so to say, that role.
Yeah, I wouldn't waste a waiver wire pick on him, but if you wake up in the morning and you see you didn't get anybody, and you can take anybody you want that's still available, that's a guy you can take a shot on. He's available in 99% of leagues. And everybody thought Henderson was the handcuff to Gurley, that he was going 7th, 8th, 9th round,
right.
And now we're all finding out the veteran is the handcuff because coaches like veterans.
Absolutely.
So that could be the case. We don't know.
Well,
right now nobody knows except Andy Reid.
Well, so think about this. So let's say let's not forget that if let's say Hill's going to miss 4 weeks, maybe even 6, goes on IR or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Right. Who's just moved into number 1?
Watkins.
Sammy Watkins.
Yeah.
Injury. I mean,
oh yeah, he's very injury prone.
Right.
Oh,
so
yeah. You could have both these guys starting soon.
Right. I mean, literally, right. By week 5,
Watkins,
the starting wide receivers for the Chiefs could be Hardman and Demarcus Robinson.
100%. I mean, they're the next guys up, and Watkins, we're all excited about him, but he is very
injury prone.
Very injury prone.
It's
his whole career. It's just been a pain in the ass with that guy.
Right. Absolutely. All right, another rookie that had a nice debut. Yeah, in week 1, that's wide receiver A.J. Brown. Had himself a nice little week against my Brownies.
That's your boy Antonio Brown's, was it cousin or nephew?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
But not as big of an a-hole.
We'll file that under
Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown's an a-hole, but he's not a bald a-hole.
Right.
Thank God.
Oh, you're right. And when you're right, you're right.
Thank God we don't have anything in common with him besides being fellow a-holes.
Absolutely.
But this kid, I didn't realize it. I thought he was kind of like, all right, you hear that he's related, so you immediately think they're like the same size. This kid's like the size of Corey Davis.
Yeah. No,
he's a monster.
Yeah, absolutely.
I couldn't believe how big he was. So he's like 6'2", 220. I mean, he's a big boy. And he obviously made a big splash. Corey Davis had 3 targets. I don't even know if he caught any of them.
None.
So this kid, it's a rookie receiver. Mariota, low output offense. Delaney Walker. But listen, Corey Davis is underperformed. I thought he would take a step this year. So far, not so good.
No.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Good start for the kid.
Probably not a league winner. Doesn't have that kind of upside just because of you mentioned the offense and different things like that. But again, could be the number 1 on.
Could do worse.
Absolutely. Next,
same thing with this guy.
Let's go. Let's keep the rookies going. Rookie wide receiver Deebo Samuel, San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, we all were excited about Pettis, thinking that he was like a good steal late. He started out on the bench. This guy started. He looked good. The offense didn't look all that good, but he looked decent. So another guy. I mean, these are stash guys. These are just stash them, pay attention, or just watch them on the waiver wire. They may last. Unlike the John Browns, Marquise Browns, the Crowders, who are all going to get taken this week, some of these guys may last. Deebo Samuel may not get taken. A.J. Brown may not. Demarcus Robinson may not. So if you don't really have room, you really don't want to drop anybody yet, maybe you just wait 1 more week. But if you really have a need, any of these guys are worth a lottery, a dart throw.
Yeah, I mean, the guys that we're identifying, just real quick, the guys that we've been identifying as our top 5, those are guys that certainly we're kind of saying, prioritize, go out, get them. After that, sometimes maybe, we'll try to make sure that we're making note of, whether or not we've gone to a 6 or a 7. But really, we're just kind of talking about guys that are out there. We're not saying, you have to prioritize going out and getting these guys.
Our top 2 we said were Watkins and Gallup. Go grab them. They don't even count. John Brown, Crowder, Marquise Brown, John Ross, and McCole Hardman. Those are the 5 that I think you got to prioritize.
Absolutely.
And then after that, all the rest of these guys we're talking about, the Amendolas, the Beasleys, depends on your need.
Right.
But they're not wasting waiver. I would not waste a waiver wire pick on any of the guys after 5.
No. But here's the thing. We don't, that's the whole thing. Look, we don't know everybody's leagues. I mean,
Right.
there are 16-team leagues out there. There are, or a 16-team league with a deep bench.
Or you can just bid $1 if you have like a budget of 100
right,
bids.
right. We're trying our best to, cover as much ground as we possibly can. I mean, look, that's the other thing. I mean, there's guys out there in an 18 league where, like I said.
Don't be in an 18 league, by the way.
Right.
Just add a couple owners, 2 to 4 owners, please.
All right, let's run through the rest of these guys. This is a guy that, certainly had reason to be excited about, but unfortunately the Foles injury might have sunk at that. That's wide receiver DJ Chark.
Yep, we talked about him before the season. We mentioned him as a guy to go get as a sleeper, along with John Brown, and they both had huge weeks.
Yep.
The Foles injury, we're not really sure what this guy Minshew is going to be able to do. So that puts a little bit of a damper on DJ Chark. But
Keep an eye on him.
Watch Jacksonville, see what happens with Westbrook and all these different guys, and in the next week or two.
Same thing with another guy on the same team, Chris Conley. Same thing. Keep an eye on both of them.
Right.
Conley had a decent amount of targets. He looked okay. When he with KC last year, he just wasn't able to obviously get an opportunity based off the talent they had in front of him. But so both those guys, if Minshew becomes a thing, maybe we're talking about him in a week or two. Wide receiver Randall Cobb, Dallas Cowboys.
Listen,
pedigree. I mean, he's got
the experience, and he had a good week. And Gallup and Cooper are going to demand a lot of coverage,
attention.
a lot of attention. Witten is a veteran that you can't sleep on, so he's going to sneak out of the slot there, and maybe once again be like an Amendola, be like a Beasley, be like a Crowder. Obviously, there's a lot of targets that are going to go to the top two, Cooper and Gallup. But hey, that's a good offense, and you could do worse.
Absolutely. And speaking of could do worse, Trey Quinn, wide receiver, Washington Redskins. He was a buzzy little guy due to the fact that he was going to be in the slot, and Washington, we were expecting maybe having to throw a lot. So.
Yeah, Keenum threw a lot of passes this week, threw for almost 400 yards. So Trey Quinn and Terry McLaurin, keep an eye on them. Jordan Reed is always banged up, and somebody's got to get catches. I mean, they have to catch them. Somebody has to catch. It can't be Chris Thompson catching all of them, and Vernon Davis. So yeah,
well, and I think you made a great point right there. Chris Thompson can't. Chris Thompson, we highlighted that he is injury prone. He's been known to be injured. So if Chris Thompson's all of a sudden out,
then what? Now they're really throwing to the slot guys in the short yardage.
Right. Which is similar to like the Amendola thing in Detroit. Okay, Riddick's gone. So if they don't have a guy that can fill that role, maybe that's why Amendola's getting the amount of targets.
I like that. Yeah, that's a good point.
And then last but not least, Keyshawn Johnson, wide receiver, Arizona Cardinals, rookie wide receiver, part of that air raid offense. So
yeah, he's the number 3. He's secured that role behind Kirk and Old Man Fitz, who just is an oldie but a goodie.
Absolutely.
Love him. What a steal he's going to be this year for anybody that got him. I mean, unbelievable. So yeah, Keyshawn Johnson, listen, anything happens to Fitz. He is an older guy. He keeps himself in great shape, but anything can happen. Or Kirk, he becomes the 2, and Kyler Murray started really settling in the fourth quarter and through overtime. And that offense sounds like it's going to be very dynamic.
Keep an eye, obviously, and then also, of course, as I'm sure you smart fantasy owners have already determined for yourselves, if you're in a dynasty league, and as we're talking about some of these rookies, your priority is certainly going to change based off of that. So this is a guy that you would definitely want to take a look at. I think that's about it.
Wide receivers, I hope that.
A quick question though. I talked about Hyde. I would imagine maybe like Kenny Stills is on a lot of waivers. Are you interested or just too?
I think it's the. Well, I mean, Will Fuller or Kute, however you say this guy's name.
Right.
He is the insurance policy. Kute was out, but Fuller was in. But once again, you could see a situation as with Watkins and Hill where both Fuller and Kute are out.
Absolutely, yeah.
With their chronic hamstring problems. Right. And all of a sudden, then Kenny still just becomes a very big weapon opposite of Nuck. One day we'll tell you the inside joke.
I don't need this. And then the only other guy that I did think, hey, maybe some people are curious. Demaryius Thomas, we're not interested, right? Not interested. Nothing to see here.
I mean, the Dolphins. We haven't talked about anybody on the Dolphins. And Preston
Williams.
He had a pretty good game. They had to throw to somebody. They're going to be down. They're going to be literally destroyed every single week throwing the ball. And even Rosen or Fitzmagic is going to throw for 200 yards. So it's got to go to somebody. So, maybe you find a guy in the Dolphins that's going to be just, garbage time points.
Right. We're going deep leagues at this point, I think. But also, dynasty.
But there's no team in the NFL that's literally going to be trailing all 60 minutes.
But here's the thing. They were trailing the entire time to Baltimore.
Yeah, that's a good defense,
And they're going to face some other good defense. Well, all right. Yeah, I guess matchup, fine, okay, but...
It's a crappy defense. They're going to throw for 200-300 yards just by necessity. So obviously with how much is out there after week 1, like I said, with this list, I mean, you don't have to worry about... Just in the back of your head.
Right, absolutely.
Somebody will emerge on that team.
Take a look, the unicorn. He might become something.
And that's a good keeper guy, potentially.
Well, dynasty-wise, Preston Williams, I think, belongs right on that list with the Marquise Brown, the A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel, and all those guys. I mean, listen, they say that the Preston Williams, as far as who he is as an athlete and that, he was kind of that first-round type makeup, but it was character issues or something, and, we've seen that story play out before.
Yep.
Championship.
Grab him by the pussy.
Championship.